Innuendo, Book 5 of the Todd Mills Mystery Series. Author R.D. Zimmerman. Publisher Scribble Pub Press, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Narrator Eric Aust. Chapter 25. Way in the distance and far off to the east, Martha Lyman saw the late-night sky spark and snap with a bravado show of lightning. Not just one or two pops, but a bunch of them. One right after the other. Yes, she thought, leaning on the fence behind her house and gazing across their farm at the huge storm someplace. It was getting hammered, someplace like the cities. And Andy. Her Andy was up there, beneath that storm, his body covered by a white sheet and stored in some refrigerator. She couldn't sleep, not with the image of her dead son burned into her mind. In fact, she wondered if she'd ever be able to sleep again. How could she? How could she when all she could see whenever she closed her eyes was the ashen face of her boy? Oh, Andy, he was never that pale, not her baby. He used to be so tan from being outside, from working the fields. His skin was so rich and healthy looking, his hair so golden blonde. What a handsome boy. Her pride. Often she just looked at him, marveled at his strength and his beauty and his youth, and she'd think, good God, did such a handsome boy come out of me? Did I really make him? She was glad she went up there today. Glad she drove all the way up to the cities. She had to see him. One more time, especially before they hacked him apart. Just hours after she'd left, they were supposed to have started the autopsy, cracking his chest wide open, pulling his insides out and slipping all that mess into plastic bags. The very thought of it was more than she could bear. Butchering her boy like he was a side of beef. She asked him not to, pleaded with the detective to leave her boy alone, that he was dead and nothing was bringing him back, but he told her that he had no choice. It was the law. An autopsy was required when someone died of unnatural causes. Good Lord, what a final indignity, being split open by some total stranger. Aside from the lights that continued to pound in the distant sky, Martha saw headlights way down the road and coming this way. Was it him? Was her husband finally coming back? It had to be going on 2 or 3 in the morning. And she was still the only one home. After she'd been at the morgue, she'd been interviewed by the police, but after that, Martha really wasn't sure what she'd done. Somehow she got into the Skyway system downtown and just started rambling around the indoor system of walkways and pedestrian bridges. Eventually she found her car, and then she just started driving. It had taken her hours to get home, and when she did, there was no one here, neither her daughters nor her husband. Only a simple note. Martha, I've taken the girls to their grandmother's for the night. I'll be back later. I don't know when. John. So, was this him? Was that his truck now speeding this way? Her eyes, dazed and achingly tired, focused on the vehicle, watching it as it flew across the flat terrain that stretched nearly as far as the sky could see. But it didn't slow as it neared their farm, rather as if she and her life had never existed. It just went flying right on by, disappearing into the depth of the night. When she'd come home to no one, Martha had in one simple moment realized that the life she had known would never exist again, that it was gone forever. She'd picked up the note and understood that her husband could have been and probably had been gone all day. He hadn't put a time when he'd left, nor had he said when he'd be back. And looking around the farm, she saw that nothing had been done. The tractor was just where it had been this morning, over by the metal pole barn. And there had been no more tilling, no more baling. She'd looked around calmly, taking it all in, and it just came to her, easily and simply. I want a divorce. Yes, she thought, hanging onto the white fence. That was going to be the fallout from all of this. The complete and utter dissolution of their little family. It wasn't Andy's fault, not at all. But the trauma of coming to terms with his being gay and running away had forced upon them a test of greater magnitude than she could ever have imagined. Sure, it was a test they might not ever have faced, and certainly one they need not have taken. And if they hadn't, they probably would have just marched on, working the farm, raising their kids, and growing old together. Or maybe, just maybe, it wasn't a test at all. Maybe all of these travails had simply shown a light on the truth she had previously chosen not to see. Whatever, without all of this, though, she doubted anything would have changed. But instead, everything had most definitely, so especially now with young Andy's death, it was just kind of one of those before and after things. Tonight, she saw everything quite clearly. Just who her husband was to her, what role he really played in her life, how much she could or couldn't depend upon him. And she understood that all of this was a storm too great for them to handle, that this was something from which their marriage could not and would never recover. So, where had he gone? And where was he now? It was not a question of dark jealousy, not even one of bitter curiosity, but merely a point in need of simple clarification. That was the lie. His lie. And she'd chosen to ignore it, turned away, pretending not to see something that was lying right before her. Why had she thought to never question him? Because she was afraid of the answer? John, her husband of almost 20 years, hadn't gone with her today to identify the body of their murdered son, and he wasn't home tonight, when she was drowning and needed him more than ever, and suddenly it all made sense. All those stupid stories. Martha, I'm going to go look at a small feedlot this morning. I think it might be a great investment, but don't worry. I shall be back by dinner. Sweetheart, there's a tractor I'm thinking about buying. Don't hold lunch. Honey, I'm going to play some poker with the guys. Don't you wait up on me, okay? At least once or twice a month. Something like that came up, and not once had she ever doubted him. You fool, she told herself. You absolute fool. So who was she? A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.